Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the IBM Authorized SAM Provider ISP Option Seminar here. Just so that everyone is aware, this session is being recorded. The recording will be shared to everyone after the webinar, including the Q&A. If you guys have any questions, we encourage you to start using the chat option or raise your hand, and the intent really is to have this webinar very interactive and not really just be a slide or a deck driven session. So we appreciate you guys joining. Again, as a reminder, the session is being recorded, and the recording will be shared with everyone that is attending, and we'll kind of go through this as efficiently as possible given the webinar. So quickly, this is an introduction to Anglepoint. We're not going to go into the meat and the program in itself, but my name is Anish Patel, and I lead the IASP program in relationship with IBM for Anglepoint. For those of you who are not aware, Anglepoint is asset management consulting firm. Software asset management is all we focus on, mostly in the Fortune 1000 space and the enterprise space. Continuing on, just a quick glance of Anglepoint. It was founded in 2009 with a focus on SAM managed services. We're not an audit firm. We're not a publisher-specific audit firm either. And having alliances built with IBM, Microsoft, Oracle, the SAM tool providers, some of the more known Gartners and the IBSMAs of the world, just to keep in touch with the SAM industry in itself. Outside of that, Anglepoint's very active with the Boys and Girls Club, the Women in Technology, and just some of the other forums that we're involved in, along with the SAM industry in itself. And today you've got a pretty diverse group of panelists, and I'll just do a quick intro, and then they'll be diving into some of the sessions. But you've got a good mix of publisher, an ASP, an end user, and a reseller on this panel. So you've got Javier Moreno. Javier Moreno is the IBM executive that ASP program for IBM for the Americas. You've got Ron Brill, president and chairman of Anglepoint. Ron also is the chair for the ISO committee, Working Group 21. Todd Alcock's here. He's vice president of software strategy for Converge. Converge is one of IBM's largest reseller and a partner. Jeffrey West. Jeffrey is from Northern Trust. He's the SVP for license and asset management. Tim Barnett, Director of Vendor Management from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. And then lastly, Anish Patel is on the line as well. Again, you've got a pretty all-encompassing group of panelists, so we're hoping all the questions that we receive, and we hope we receive quite a bit of them, can hit on sort of all views from a client, customer perspective, from a partner, reseller perspective, from an ASP perspective, and then obviously directly from IBM as well. So we're going to deep dive into this. Javier, I'd like to turn this over to you. Kind of just give us a very quick overview of the ISP program, and we could go through that. So I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Anish. I was hoping to have had my AirPods connected, and then magically through the wonders of technology, they disconnected at this exact minute. So I believe I've gotten them back, and you should be able to hear me crisply. So first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody that registered to take part in the session. We're pleased to be able to share this message, and it would be bad manners if I didn't thank our hosts, both Anglepoint as well as Converge, who worked hard to get the audience here so that we could tell our story. More importantly, I'd like to thank our customers Jeffrey West from Northern Trust, and Tim Barnett from BCBS, who kindly agreed to take part in this. And I'm excited to hear their points of views as they share some of their experiences in this program with us. So with that, Anish, why don't we go ahead? Anish, can you hear me?
I can hear you. I think the slides are updated. Can you see that?
I'm still seeing the overview slide.
It's updated on my side. Pete, could you give Javier just control?
Yeah, no, I've got it now. It came through.
Okay. All right.
This is really the introduction to the whole theme from IBM on this new approach that we've embarked on with regards to licensing and verification. And so I like to call this the mea culpa slide because as a publisher and a significant vendor in the software industry, we have been part and parcel of the creation of the challenges that exist in managing software assets across your businesses. And these drive significant impacts in your business, as this table shows. And so many of our clients are large clients. They're dynamic in the sense that they're constantly evolving, mergers, growth organically, and they work in both complex organizations and complex industries. They are dealing with multiple sites across states, across countries, across continents, and they're dealing both with the traditional on-premise environment as well as the nascent environment of cloud. And in order to accomplish all that they have to accomplish in their businesses to manage them properly, they need to employ the softwares of multiple vendors and multiple technologies. And so you take all of these factors and put them together, and that makes the challenge that the software asset management teams within your businesses significant. You are charged by your executives to drive efficiency. You want to make sure you pay for what you use, but more importantly, you want to make sure that you pay or that you use what you've paid for, no more, no less. And all the while, control is a fact. We all have heard the term software proliferation. We know that software makes its way into our servers, into our endpoints, sometimes without our knowledge, without our control. Gartner likens the issue of asset management from a software perspective to that of security in today's computing environment. One moment you are secure and you have control, and the next moment someone opened a file attachment in an email and your environment is no longer secure. It's much the same way for managing software across your environment. And so that flies in the face of the desire to be in governance of your agreements. We all want to comply with what our agreements state. And so all of these things coming together make this effort quite challenging. And so from that perspective, IBM recognizes the task. And to that end, we launched the IBM Authorized SAM Provider program at the beginning of 2019. Next slide. And so what is the IASP option? The extended name is a mouthful, so I'll refer to it as IASP going forward. So as I said, we launched this in the beginning of January 2019 in partnership with 4 authorized SAM providers. Anglepoint is one of the founding members, as are KPMG, Deloitte, and Ernst & Young, and the software asset management practices within those firms. And so we looked to collaborate with our partners in defining who would be the ideal clients that would fit this kind of a program. And we came up with a selected list. And so we have been working through those clients that we selected because they had a predisposition for SAM. It was something that was important to their businesses. And because there was a good fit from an IBM client and angle point perspective. And so it is our intent to offer this option as an alternative to our traditional software license review, which is also known colloquially by everybody as a software audit. And so let me take you through some of the benefits of this program. First and foremost, as I said earlier, many of you in your environments are running multiple vendor and publisher programs, and each of one of these publishers has their own license verification program. So they're all running audits, often at the same time. And your business has gotten good at scheduling this ongoing demand, this week, that month, this vendor, that vendor, etc. And so it's IBM's desire for those clients that opt in and are invited to this program to take ourselves out of that cycle. So the first statement that we make under this program is that IBM will change its terms and conditions. And so long as you're participating in this option, we will not audit you in perpetuity. That will give you time and resources to devote to your business, to the challenge of running the assets that you're trying to manage, and not to responding to an auditor's questions about this or the other. In exchange for that guarantee, what we're asking for is more frequent reporting. In today's environment, we traditionally do not ask for reporting unless it's going under the auspices of a formal review. And so we feel that through the knowledge and expertise that the partners are bringing to bear, and through the practice of SAM, that more frequent monitoring is going to be a benefit to you. You're going to get better at it. And as you get better at it, it will become easier and less onerous a task. And so with that will come the additional benefit of avoiding surprises. As you may have experienced in the past through a review with one of the software publishers that does reviews, if you haven't looked at your environment very closely for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, things have a habit of creeping up. And with that creep comes the obligation to deal with surprises, which can tend to be significant. And so this effort is meant to mitigate that creep by ensuring that none of the surprises build up over time. And lastly, to put our money where our mouth is, IBM is ensuring that we bring to the table your best commercial terms should there be any surprise while you're a part of that program. And so the first thing is that in addition to stating that we will not perform a software review while you're in this program, we also guarantee that by working with one of our partners in this program, you will meet the requirements of the subcapacity eligibility for pricing. And so there will not be a discussion over time whether your environment was subcap or not compliant and therefore full cap. That discussion will be off the table because the partner will be ensuring that you're in compliance. The second is that this is meant to be a prospective, a looking forward kind of an arrangement. So if there is ever a surprise, what we'll require you to do is to purchase the license that is in shortfall. And that then by extension means that there will be no retroactive subscription and support charges for a 2-year look back period, which is our traditional approach during a software review. Reason for that is as you're reporting more frequently to us, it is unlikely there has ever been any past productive use. Therefore, there is no charge or no need for us to bring up a charge of past productive use related to retroactive SNS. Lastly, and this is relevant to our partner Converge, it isn't our intent to disrupt your sales relationships. And so should you decide that you want to true up, and we don't use that term, but effectively purchase the license that you're in shortfall on through IBM directly, you have that capability, and you will have access to your best commercial price at that time. You also have the ability in parallel to address that shortfall through your preferred IBM business partner. And that we felt was an important statement, not only to our clients, but to our partners, in that we're entering this effort now. And those relationships that have existed with these partners, in some cases, go back decades. And so, Anish, if you could go to the next chart. So I've talked about the 4 authorized SAM providers that we've put into this program. And so I wanted to focus a second on their role, because they are there to bring a skill set that often our clients are unable to maintain over time. In a SAM department, if you are running 4, 5, 10 major software vendors, you've got one individual who's trying to master all of the licensing rules from each of the vendors. And each of the vendors has a significant number of rules, and they're all different vendor to vendor. And so with any luck, your staff is great and they're able to take on this knowledge, and then they're so great they get promoted, or they move on to another new step in their career, and you're left with this knowledge gap that often poses a challenge as you try to keep the control posture and to meet the governance obligations. And so we've ensured that the 4 partners that we've authorized not only have the skill set on the tools that we authorize for accounting the subcapacity environment, and there are 3 tools. The IBM License Metric Tool, ILMT, is the first. It is a free tool from IBM available to all clients. The second is Flexera. Flexera is a significant player in the SAM space, and they are a chargeable tool available from Flexera, but it has the ability to manage not just the IBM portfolio, but other software vendors' portfolios. And the third was a tool that was owned by IBM until June of last year. It transitioned over to HCL, and it is a BigFix. So again, like Flexera, it is a chargeable tool, but it does manage more than just the IBM environment. But any one of those 3 tools are authorized to be used under this program. So the partners have the ability to work with a client as they enter the program. The idea is you contract in, you then begin the effort of establishing the first snapshot, a baseline, and that may involve a different scope of effort depending on your path or status along the path of SAM. And so there are some clients that we have and we share that have no software tool and no software tool installed. So we need to work with them from the very beginning. There are other clients that have multiple tools installed, they have processes in place, and so it's a different work effort, different scope, much more of an advisory and tuning scenario than it is a perform scenario. And so we establish a baseline, we address all of the reporting, all of the tuning, all of the bundling, make sure that you're confident with what you got, compare that to your entitlement records, and then produce for you an effective license position. So I said we, meaning the royal we, which in this case would be Anglepoint. So they would perform this function for you and provide a report to you for your review. They will do this in confidence with you because they are working for you. They will never share this information with us. The only party that will share any reporting with us is the client that opts into the program. And so we felt that that was an important dimension of this program. And then from an ongoing perspective, our licensing rules for subcapacity require quarterly production of reports, the archiving of 2 years of reports. And so as part of this program, we're effectively asking that you share those quarterly reports with us as they get produced. And so that would then continue an exercise that gives you both you, the partner, and the ASP, such as Anglepoint, the opportunity to begin to look at ways of optimizing your licensing spend, potentially identify orphan subscription and support that you've been paid for but no longer require, to give you the opportunity to consider topologies that perhaps would improve your licensing costs. These partners work with hundreds of customers, and so they've got the ability to bring to you what perhaps others in your industry are doing, and therefore give you the potential to reconsider the topology you've chosen, and therefore mitigate some potential spend to repurpose it for new initiatives like AI or cloud containers and cloud packs. Lastly, these partners also have skills on software vendors other than IBM. And so as you contract with them to work in the capacity of IASP, they can then extend those practices to deal with other software vendors' demands in the future. And this could be vendors like Oracle or SAP or Microsoft or a host of others where they've got equivalent skill sets. Next chart, please. And so how does the option work? There's a dialogue that is had between IBM and you, the client, based on an invitation to consider the option. There are two contracts that you'll need to consider. One is a contract with IBM. That contract says that you're you and we're we, and we agree that as of this date, you are an active participant in the program. And that means that you agree to hire one of the authorized partners that we've got in the program, to work with them to produce a report for a baseline, to share that baseline report with us, and then to address any shortfalls that you have through that reporting, either at the baseline or an ongoing basis, and that you will have from IBM access to your best commercial price at the time. And so it's a very straightforward agreement. It is 2 pages. It is simple to bolt on, and it can be part of an existing contract or it could stand alone. The second contract has to do with your relationship with the partner and the definition of the scope of work that they're going to perform for you. And so that could be, as I said, consulting, a very small effort where effectively they are going to confirm that the reports that are being produced are accurate and complete. With their certification of that, IBM doesn't challenge any findings. The other scope is that they do the whole complete install and run through the gamut of the managed services that are required. And so in defining that scope, you will define with them the price and value of the offering, and then we move through the cycle. Next chart. And so in the first year and a half of this program, we have clients like Northern Trust that have been with us since almost the beginning of the program. And we have new clients like BCBS that have recently joined. And so we've got 2 different perspectives here on the panel. We have clients now signed in the Americas, in Europe, and in Asia, who are many times multinationals, as well as operate globally, and they're across every industry. So banking, insurance, manufacturing, retail, distribution, etc. The offer and this option applies universally across industry because it addresses a root problem in technology, which is really figuring out how to manage the assets from a software perspective that you use to run your business. Next chart. And so I talked about benefits early. We believe through this option that we are bringing expert knowledge, both in licensing and in tooling, to make the task easier. The advantage is that from it will come insights to be able to project how things are happening and perhaps understand why, to be able to seek opportunities to optimize, to have the guarantee of the risk of audit being off of the table while ensuring compliance with a major pricing benefit, which is subcapacity. And lastly, the right to be able to use your best commercial price to address any shortfalls that may exist as we go through this process. And so I believe that is the last slide before we start talking. Well, very kindly, the Angle Point team has allowed the names of the 4 providers that we've authorized, along with the contact information here. And so you can see that there's a great deal of teaming, and we appreciate that concession.
Absolutely. Thank you, Javier, for the very detailed overview and summarizing the benefits. At this point, what we'd like to do is open this up for questions from the audience. We're hoping the information here was helpful and provided some transparency. And you've got all aspects of the industry here with the ASP, the end user, the partner, and IBM. So, Pete, any questions that have come up here?
It looks like there's one question in the chat, Anish.
All right. One of the questions is how many people are in this program? So we'll, Javier, I'll give my perspective. Maybe you can give yours from that side.
Sure.
But globally, from an Angle Point perspective, there's close to 40 plus customers in the program. That does not include all of Angle Point's IBM managed service clients, but just specifically into the program. And Javier, maybe you can comment on the IBM side.
Sure. So from an IBM perspective, we're approximating the 3 digits. And so, as I said earlier, we started the program in January of 2019, which in effect meant we started to talk to our first customers sometime in the March scenario when we got organized. This year, March, first anniversary, COVID hit us all, disrupted dialogue. But we're finding that both this option and the way this option works is something that many clients are being drawn towards. So we're seeing an acceleration of interest, and we're actively reviewing more and more clients every day.
Thanks, Javier. Next question, how many federal governments or federal clients are in the program, I'm assuming? Directly, we've got a few agencies that have enrolled. I think, generally speaking, Javier, maybe you can comment on just the approach to the federal accounts and the federal segment.
Sure.
Yeah.
So as you can imagine, a great deal of the effort involved in this has to do with scope and what is the universe of the assets and the effective enterprise that you're trying to manage. In federal government, there is a particular challenge, which is the interlacing of agencies and oversight and state and federal. And so in many cases, it's very difficult to understand what contract is in play for a given asset, because the client has the ability to source from multiple sources. We have one major federal agency, and unfortunately under confidentiality, I'm not able to share their name, but suffice it to say that every single citizen in the United States has an ongoing relationship with this agency. And it's a good one. So they often bring you pleasant surprises and greetings. That said, it boils down to scope. And so if the scope of the agency can be defined to a limited number of contracts, then there's an ability to go through and do this kind of an option.
Thank you. Question for Jeffrey. Jeffrey, and you know, you've been in the program now, coming up to multiple cycles of reporting. Just how has your experience been thus far? And if you can kind of give your perspective, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So thus far, the program has run very, very much like Javier has mentioned. We've gone through a couple of reporting cycles, our baseline and quarterlies. And as Javier said, the process is quite straightforward. We work very closely with Anglepoint, who prepares the report based on the information that's in our management tool. I don't know if it's okay to mention that we use Flexera, but we do. Anglepoint helps us both with the PVU and the non-PVU information. We've established teams within our product owners who work with validating what Anglepoint is seeing, and then they produce a final report, which we take a final review of, and very simply convey that final report to IBM, who accepts it, records it, and then we move on to looking toward the next quarter. Now, if we have any changes from the baseline or from the previous report, we simply make those purchases at a convenient time for everyone. So it's really been quite straightforward.
Great, no, thank you. And maybe just to the same point, Tim, I know you're new to the program, but maybe just give me your overview on, you know, the ease or how was the experience into the program, or at least getting signed up to the program?
Sure. Yeah, no, I can speak to that a little bit. We don't use Flexera. We actually you know, harvest a lot of the information ourselves through the enterprise, but Anglepoint has simplified that quite a bit. You know, by helping us aggregate the information and put it all together. And in enterprise our side, there are you know, obviously a lot of moving parts, right? You know, not just for IBM, but for every software product we have. So it's nice being able to leverage their processes and technology to, you know, to help us make some sense of that.
Great, no, thank you. A couple of questions that have come through the chat, and I'll try to get to them. There were some hand-in-hand questions, whether it was what is the duration or the term of the contract? You know, as long as you're under a managed service agreement with one of the 4 ASPs, and you've signed your IASP contract and continue to meet those obligations, the term is negotiated between you and the ASP. Our average term is about 3 years. We find that it takes at least a year to start establishing a process, year 2 to start, you know, getting used to it, right? It's a habit. If you're not used to SAM, if you're not used to reporting to a publisher, you start getting into the habit of doing so. And then year 3, just depending on changes in technology, changes in the environment, the dynamics of it, is what we typically have seen in our experience thus far. In terms of Red Hat products and Red Hat in scope, Javier, I'll let you speak on that. But currently, you know, Red Hat, being a new acquisition, is not in scope of the IASP program, although it is in scope of the IBM managed services that Anglepoint provides. But Javier, from a program or IBM perspective, if you have these thoughts.
Yeah, let me touch on the first, and then I'll address the latter. So the first was the question of how long is a customer or client able to be part of this program, and so the answer is in perpetuity. So long as you're actively participating with the requirements, which is to have an ASP, to be performing the reporting function, and to be addressing any shortfalls that you've got over time, then from an IBM perspective, you're in the program. And that has no time limit. you leave the program when you choose to leave. And from our perspective, we would rather that a client never leaves. And so to be very clear then on the one question here that came through on the chat, you will not be audited by IBM for as long as you are part of this program. Should you leave the program, there's an important point to be made, which is standard software verification terms come back into play. And so that you would expect that at some point after having left the program, you would likely receive a notification letter that says, our last information from you was dated 2-3 years ago, and we would like to come and do a review. And so it's our objective as we transition to this effort of SAM, that this is an ongoing effort and exercise. And so we hope to have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of clients eventually come onto this program. And from that, keep evolving it and improving it. On Red Hat, as you all know, we acquired Red Hat, and that acquisition was formal in July of last year. And so we've maintained Red Hat, a wholly owned subsidiary, operating independently. Its products are not part of Passport Advantage. Therefore, by definition, they are excluded from the efforts that would be part of the verification that we exercise through Passport Advantage. That said, the Red Hat team, as a software publisher themselves, have their own licensing programs, and they would work with you directly on whatever those may be with respect to their products.
Great, thank you. And folks, I'm trying to get to the questions as fast as possible, so we'll go down the list. One of the questions that has come up is, why is, and Todd, this is to you, why is the IASP program important to Converge? And sort of, if you can give me your overview on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, thanks. Very simply, we're one of the top 3 IBM resellers in North America, and we have thousands of IBM renewals every year. So our main goal in this is to create happier customers and better relationships. It's kind of that simple. Nobody likes to be audited, whether it's by the IRS or IBM or Oracle or whoever it is, right? It's not a fun experience, and it can definitely affect relationships. So we think this program is incredibly valuable to our customers, and it keeps everybody, happy and healthy all around.
Great. No, thanks for that, Todd. Ron Brill, the question for you, and hoping to get your insight. How is Anglepoint helping organizations with cost optimization, cost savings in the current COVID-19 situation?
Yeah, thanks, Anish. Yeah, I just want to say that optimization is part of the service that we provide to all our clients, including for IBM Managed Service, and including as part of the ISP initiative. So it's really part of what we do. We want to make sure the client doesn't have any exposures from a license compliance perspective, but at the same time that they're not paying for what they don't need to pay for, right? So that element is really part of any managed service. With COVID-19, what we've seen is customers shifting sometimes their entire business model, and certainly their license consumption use cases and quantities. There's a shift to home use and home use rights and everything that is involved with that. Organizational changes. Some license consumptions go way up, others go way down, or change the use case that's kind of underlying the licensing scenario. And so we're actually seeing an increased need for organizations across the board to engage us in providing licensing advice on how to respond to these changes. And this goes, like I said, both to organizations that are suffering as a result of this crisis, as well as to other organizations that we have that are actually growing very, very rapidly at this particular time. So both of these types of organizations are actually seeing changes that have licensing implications.
Thank you, Ron. Javier, this is I think one of a burning question that's come up several times before. I've seen them in some LinkedIn forums as well. But and the question is the program limited to only the 4 IBM partners listed? And is IBM considering onboarding additional partners? And if so, how can we learn?
So good question. I've heard the same. And so we have invested in the 4 authorized partners. In effect, have also invested in this program. And so at this time, we're not looking to make any additions to the programs. The scope, the skills, capabilities that these 4 partners bring to the market are global in nature, they're expert in nature, and they're trusted. And so we are constantly keeping an eye on requests to be authorized providers, and we're having those conversations on an ongoing basis because we never want to shut our doors. But at this time, we're not looking to make any changes.
Great, thank you. I guess a couple of things. There's a question here about how do we handle non-processor license metrics not measured by tools within the service. From an angle point, IBM Managed Services, and part of our licensing expertise, we built a proprietary tool called Elevate. And we use the Elevate tool and methodologies that we've created for IBM within that tool, over hundreds and hundreds of, close to 1,800 or so. And, you know, we continue to do so and build those out. So we, from an angle point at managed service perspective, we are not reliant on any tool. Does the tool help? Sure, but we know that tool's not the end all to say all sort of thing either. It's not 100%. So we rely on our own licensing expertise and in-house knowledge to complete and fill in all those gaps. Matter of fact, you know, clients who do not want to use a tool but have something completely different, we work with those guys as well to finish a baseline. So we're not reliant on any tool specifically that is under the program, and obviously hold the expertise to operate under that as well. Hopefully that addresses that. Go ahead, Javier.
If you would let me add to that on behalf of the other partners as well. And so clearly the subcapacity tools that find the discoverable software make that task easy when they're configured and running. And so that's one of the primary tasks. But it's a good point to be made that there's significant software inventories, non-PVU inventories, which aren't discoverable by a tool. And so as Anish said, each of the 4 partners has established procedures and processes and some scripts and some tools that they would make available to our clients to go help discover those products. Now, an important point, which is I talked about the ongoing reporting being quarterly in nature. That only applies for the subcapacity products. What we require and request is for the non-PVU products that beyond the initial snapshot at the baseline, that the reporting for those products happens on an annual basis in recognition of the fact that there is no tool effectively to make it a simple effort. It can be an onerous task, but we're trying to mitigate some of that effort by making it annual in nature.
Okay. Another question, and this is specifically to the 2 end users, so Jeffrey and folks can just jump in. But Jeffrey, maybe we'll start with you and then move on to Tim. Was there an impending event? Was there a trigger to the decision of entering into the IASP program? Or, you know, maybe you could share a bit of perspective there.
Unfortunately, I was brought into this after the ISP program was entered into by Northern Trust. I do know that we were at the beginning of the program. We were asked or being given the opportunity to join the program. My presumption is that it's reflective of the the relationship that we have and the size of our IBM footprint in terms of software products. It's definitely been the right decision for us to make. It's made the reporting a lot easier, but unfortunately, I wish I could say yes, I know exactly what happened, but it was before my
Sure.
tenure with the program, and it would be wrong for me to guess.
No, I appreciate the candidness. Tim, same question to you. You know, was there a trigger or is there a company culture that provoked it or something from a vendor management or a SAM perspective that got you interested and actually in the program?
Yeah, well, there were a lot of things. I would say you mentioned company culture, and our company is actually going through pretty significant cultural change, and that's probably a good part of it. And it's been the process has been very palatable. It's been easy to navigate, so far, but we are brand new to it, so so far no pain.
Okay. Hopefully the Angle Point team will keep it that way. And then let's
and let me just follow up on that real quick by saying this program, it's a lot more manageable than watching for the next audit to come around the corner. I will say that it does make the effort between this program and the partnership with Angle Point, it does make taking a view of this whole subject of managing your assets or software assets in particular much more straightforward.
So I make that I absolutely agree, and I think it's interesting as IBM has been in the forefront and a pioneer in approaching this sort of a proactive approach. It'd be interesting and curious to see if other publishers will follow on from that point on. Javier, a burning question coming in is, how do we nominate customers, or can any customer be nominated?
So, great question. We have been working with our 4 authorized partners to identify clients that have the scope, the size, and the focus in SAM where this makes sense. We're also taking a look at our ongoing ELA renewal cycle as we come to term with certain ELA contracts. That is the vehicle that IBM uses to make available its very best terms and conditions for all of its software programs. And so naturally, we want to include this as part of those ongoing discussions to our very largest clients as well. The objective, as Jeffrey has kindly pointed out, is to make this whole effort easier. And in that, hopefully, to continue to build and earn the right to be a part of your enterprise and to provide the technologies that we're working very hard to bring to market.
Great. There's another question on pricing or standard pricing schema, ballparks, etc. I'll say it from a ASP or a consulting perspective. A lot of factors affect the pricing of each engagement. It's it's your environment size, your IBM footprint, tool or no tool, and the maturity of your ITAM SAM program, etc. So I don't unfortunately have a ballpark number to give you. Happy to connect with you directly if you'd like to reach out and have that discussion, generally speaking, but we just don't have a easy button from a pricing side, but I did want to address that. Maybe not addressing it as addressing it as well. And then, Javier, one of the questions was, are cloud-based programs or product subscriptions included under the program?
So the answer is yes, all IBM software programs, irrespective of the environment, are part of the program.
Right. This is a question, and I'll kind of give a lot of a perspective of angle point, but if an ASP partner finds a compliance gap, can they advise on removing the gap rather than buying more licenses? From an ASP perspective, we report what is found, and we note it on the report. So for example, if there is a deployment that is simply a rogue deployment, it's not being used, it's not in production, no business values received from it, there's a note made of that. And then that report is sent to you. You know, the intent of the program is not to be punitive in terms of how we address those situations, but maybe Javier, I know we've sort of brought this up before, and maybe you want to address that real quickly as well.
Sure, and part of this, as you pointed out, is not to be punitive, but rather collaborative. And so, what I like to say as I speak to clients is that, you know, we've got a way of being contractual in nature, and that often isn't a very pleasant dialogue. But in a collaborative scenario, what we're asking our ASPs to do is to work with the clients and help elevate, if you will, the common sense around things. We understand that a gold code CD will get out there, and you'll have programs which have never been used. And so in that specific scenario, we would ask the ASP to confirm with you and to attest to the fact that they've verified it, they've tested it, and there's a plan to remove that code from the servers within 15 days. Or 30 days, whatever is the reasonable amount. And so they would make note of that in the report to the client. The client would then share that report with us, making the affirmation that, you know, we discovered some code, it's never been used, it's not productive, it is being removed. And so we would accept that at face value. What we would see is in the next report, that software is either going to be there or it's going to be gone. And we'll have a conversation around, well, is it really not in use, or is it in use? And what was the reason that it remained on a report if it did? And so back and forth in a collaborative dialogue, I think is the common sense way to address those kinds of issues. And so we encourage the ASPs to work with clients to advise them and to bring that dialogue to us so that we can effectively deal with some of these things that will happen over time.
Yeah, and
I want to add on this point as well, is that, like I said before, optimization is definitely part of the reason why a customer would engage in a managed service and in the ISP program as well. As Javier mentioned, when something has been deployed by accident, not used, or could be optimized in that way, and IBM taking kind of the prospective non-penalty approach, it is in the customer's best interest that this discussion involves IBM. Then everything is above board. You have kind of the record and of those conversations, and it improves the customer position where that conversation is involving IBM. It's part of that optimization process. And again, we can attest to many clients that we've had around the world that IBM is absolutely taking that prospective non-penalty approach, non-punitive approach across the board in a consistent way, which I think is really for the customer's benefit there.
And if you don't mind me joining in the discussion here from the customer perspective, that it works as advertised, as Javier and Ron and Anish just discussed. And I'll go a little further to say it also helps to create the discipline within the organization to be aware of what are we installing, you know, even if it's just for proof of concept. Is the software coming off when it's supposed to come off? Are we decommissioning when we're supposed to decommission? It's really helps create an awareness of keeping your room clean. if you will. I can say that since my kids are now back in the house. But truly, it does, and it does work as everyone has mentioned, which is very, very nice.
Thank you for that, Jeffrey.
Great. Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey. One of the questions is, Javier, and specifically IBM, is if a customer has already received an audit letter, can the customer sign the IASP and cancel the audit?
So that's an involved question. So the answer is fairly involved. Clearly, we are continuing to run software reviews with clients. Some are at a client's request. We have had clients that are not invested in SAM, that do have a large portfolio, and that are not invested in engaging with one of our authorized providers because they run a risk model. So they do the computational math on, the last time I got audited was, the next time I get audited is, and if I get the speeding ticket, if you will, I'll take that to court and I'll argue with the judge and plead down the fine. That's certainly one approach. It's not one we endorse or condone, but it is an approach that is out there in the marketplace. And for those clients, we'll continue to deal with verification in a more contractual way. With respect to IASP, we want to focus on SAM. So for those clients where we have started down the path of an on-site verification, invariably we're going to continue down that path. And as we come to closure, what we're also doing is offering those clients on a going forward basis the option not to be part of that exercise in the future by making the option available for ISP.
Great. Thanks for addressing that, Javier. I understand it's a completely loaded question, so I do appreciate the candidness. Folks, we're coming up to the last couple of minutes here. I want to thank everyone on the panel. First of all, I appreciate you guys taking the time, sharing your honest experience with this program. I truly believe it gives a lot of credibility to the intent and what this program is all about. If anyone has any last minute thoughts, comments that you'd like to share, please feel free to go ahead and we can then close this, believe it or not, meeting on time.
Well, for my part, I'd like to thank the team at Anglepoint, certainly our partners at Converge, and most importantly, as I said, Jeffrey, Tim, for being panel members, and to the rest of the clients that joined. We thank you for your business. We hope to continue to earn the right to have your business in the future. And most importantly, we wish you all good health and safety over the coming months.
All right. Thanks very much, folks. For people who have not been able to ask a question and would like to reach out, please feel free to reach out directly, to Anglepoint or Javier if you'd like. We'd certainly be able to share our experiences and talk a little bit more in detail if we need to. Again, thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time, and thank you again to the panelists. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.